Well, hello everybody. So it is January the 8th, and I apologize I haven't made a journal in quite some time. John was here, and we were doing quite a bit of traveling, and of course I let him take those videos, which we'll actually be very thankful for, because John is a much better videographer than I am. Typically when I do things for BaseNet, you will notice I have a cameraman, because you'll notice all the things I shoot myself are either shaky or blurry or slightly out of focus. I'm many things, but a visual artist I'm not. So my apologies to those of you who have been following for the quality of the videos, and I'll give you a brief synopsis of what we've been doing, and that way you'll know what you're looking at when you get the videos up. So yesterday we went to Mumbai, and we actually stayed at the Taj Palace, which is one of the top two things you should see while you're in Mumbai, or while you're in India. It's pretty much number two to the actual Taj Mahal. And it was built by a businessman by the name of Tata. And if you're Indian, you don't need to ask who that is. Those of us in the States, Tata has yet to bring a car over to the States. Their car company is one of their more famous endeavors. But they are sort of like the GE of India, in that they have multiple very successful ventures, and the hotels are actually a very small part of that. But Tata was, in case you don't know the history of India, it's kind of a cool story about the Taj Mahal Palace in Mumbai. Tata was trying to go into another hotel, a very nice hotel in Mumbai, and was kicked out because they said locals only. And he thought, well, I'm as successful of a businessman as the people who are staying here. Why can't I come in? And of course they persisted, and so he decided to open his own hotel that would be way nicer. And it was way nicer. And in fact, he eventually annexed and overtook the hotel next door, where they wouldn't take locals, and it became a very international hotel. And hence, even today, the Taj Mahal Palace, you'll see people from here, people from other countries, people from Europe and America, and just all over the world. It's a very good hotel, a very neat hotel. And I would say out of some of the expensive hotels I've stayed in, probably you get sort of the most luxury for your dollar. The rooms are really comfortable. People actively try to help you while you're there, which, service is a very big deal in India, and it's a part of the hospitality culture here. And the restaurants there are top shelf. Morimoto has one there. There's a bar there, and I actually posted a video of the most famous drink from there. It was created by a bartender for two American sailors during Prohibition, and it's called the Harbor Bar 33. And you'll actually notice that most of the Indians that you meet here actually don't drink, even if they're from areas where that's sort of something that people do, because so many of their parents sort of warned them, and sort of in older India and a lot of the Hindu cultures and things, it's not common to drink, and so therefore they actually think it's very unhealthy. And they're probably right about that. So a number of people don't drink, even if they're from areas where it's more prominent than here in Gujarat, where it's dry. So it was interesting because our bartender, you'll notice in the video, he mentions that he's been working at the Taj Mahal for 35 years, I believe, which means he was there for the terrorist attacks, 11/26. And we did take a tour of the hotel and found out that very little of the hotel's so historical, and so much of the architecture is historical, and a lot of great art was actually destroyed in those attacks, along with, obviously, a huge loss of life. And so he was there for that as well, but he's a bartender for 35 years, and he doesn't drink, which I think is something you'll see sometimes in the States if people have gone through AA, but not very often over here. But it's a very common theme, even though they don't sort of judge the rest of the world for drinking, they choose personally not to do it, which I think is interesting. So that was Mumbai. We saw obviously the gateway to India, which is actually, it's a monument, it's huge, it's got a huge line, but it's not the original structure that was here when the king and queen visited. And in front of the Taj is actually where the last British soldiers lined up to leave India. So there's some really cool pictures of that as well. So we stayed in a really historical place, and we walked around and we saw some churches and the stock exchange there in Mumbai. We did try to take some video and photos of that for you guys, but they actually don't allow that. So sorry about that. And then John was here during the week, and I attended some classes. It's really fascinating to attend classes because the professors typically want to get a dialogue going, and they typically want for you to sort of challenge what's being said and bring up other opinions and make some arguments. But you, at a certain point, it's expected that you'll just sort of like agree with whatever they have to say, whether they post any new arguments or not. I've noticed that a lot of the students often sort of expect the same thing for their arguments as well, and don't really like being challenged sort of to the degree that there would be sort of new or combined thinking. So in some ways that's given me an advantage for some professors who are interested in doing that, and then in some ways there have been times where I've just had to be like, I may disagree, but I'll have to be like, oh, sort of do the back and forth of maybe yes, sure, which is, pretty non-committal, but equivalent to you're the professor, so whatever you say goes. But I do have some great professors, so I'd say that's a minimal problem in the classes that I have because they are really good, which is great. I'm getting a lot of good education. And we also spent New Year's in Delhi. For those of you who haven't been following world news, which I don't blame you for, I admit that's not something that everybody all over the world is up on in different countries. There was a really brutal rape, and the woman eventually died, so it became assault to the degree of murder in Delhi by several men on one woman, and it's a huge deal right now in India. Indians have typically stated that one of the best things about their culture is that they have all kinds of religions and all kinds of beliefs, and they exist peacefully. One of the things that typically some more forward-thinking Indians say is that there aren't really harsh enough rape penalties, and because the woman died, these men are undergoing some very serious legislation right now, and the country is doing a lot of protesting, and it's a very dynamic time. However, that made Delhi not the funnest place to be on New Year's. There were still some parties. John and I, of course, are very low-key, and we also chose to stay at the Taj there, which again, like I say, for the money, actually in Delhi on New Year's Eve was actually probably pretty affordable, and it was amazing that it was because it was a wonderful experience. We actually ended up staying at our hotel for New Year's Eve because there was so much going on. But we did go out for dinner in Old Delhi, and we went with a friend, and he actually said he was returning home that night and not going to a party either because the whole nation's kind of in observance, and right now to party, at least in the Delhi area, is considered very inappropriate. So that's why some of you got my New Year's message, a solemn but hopeful New Year. That's sort of the feeling, the general feeling in Delhi right now, and we definitely were a part of that. But on New Year's Day, we visited the most romantic structure in the whole world, the Taj Mahal, and learned so many interesting things. Not only is the Taj Mahal built to where it actually gets wider at the top so that it always looks in perspective and that everything looks the same size, it won't appear to get smaller. It's also, as far as earthquakes and things are concerned, they had one of the shocks, like on a motorbike, actually were designed after the structure of the Taj Mahal, with the way that they built the structure into the ground versus the marble. They have some huge, I think, wooden pillars, and that now is done in a lot of construction. So architecturally, it's just unbelievable, all the white marble. It was one of the first places to use decorative arches instead of just actual plain arches. There's also, in the inside, this is really interesting. Shah Jahan, I know I'm not saying that right. Please feel free to write in and correct me. The Shah who built the Taj Mahal was actually a huge fan of the opium. So inside, around the area where his wife is actually buried, and now he subsequently is buried as well, which is another story. There are poppies actually worked into the lattice work around the area, and it's actually inlaid with precious stones, and that's really interesting. And of course, you can see the big story is you can see the foundation of the structure he was going to build for himself across the river, but he ended up not being able to complete that because he said that he was going to do it, and it was going to bankrupt the entire country because it was so expensive to build the Taj Mahal. And so his son, his third youngest son, actually killed the older two and put him on house arrest in order to take over the country and keep him from doing that. I'm sure there were probably other reasons why he killed his two older brothers and put his father on house arrest for the last 8 years of his life, but that was part of it, was that he wanted to build one for himself, and his son was like, no, we can't afford that, and so I'm going to take over. And it was actually built for his third wife, not for his first or second. The first and second were married to him for diplomatic reasons, and they bore him no children. This one bore him 14 children, 7 of which lived, I think, to the building of the Taj Mahal, and then one of them died. Two of the survivors were girls, and they actually were allowed to see him during his exile at the end of his life. So one of the reasons why he loved her so much is because she's the woman who bore him all of his children. Even the ones who died or lived, and she asked him to make her 3 promises. One was that he wouldn't get married again. He was like, I'm doing good. I've got 300 concubines. Sorry. He had 300 concubines and 2 other wives. And then she requested that he take care of her remaining children, which he promised to do. Obviously, kind of failed at that. And then that he would build a monument to her because he loved her so much, and that's what the Taj Mahal is. So, sort of a beautiful story, but also kind of just a typical story of sort of what we would consider medieval history. If you look at the Taj Mahal, actually, it's like watching... I said to my husband, the Taj Mahal is beautiful, but if you go to Fort Agra, which I think is one of the most amazing structures just in the world, because it's several palaces that sort of they just built upon one and kept building and building and building. And now mostly the military have taken over a large portion of the grounds, but you can still see 3 of the palaces, and it was Shah Khan and the 2 brothers and the 2 kings before him. And you can see when it gets into his part, because everything again becomes white marble and decorated arches, and it was just this red brick that was very prominent, and still actually is one of the most prominent ways to build things in India. My school, which was built by Louis Kahn, is actually also mostly the red brick, the tiny red bricks, and even over on the new campus, which is mostly concrete, you can still see sort of a similar influence of that, which on the inside of the walls, sometimes they will do that and then cover them with concrete, which is really interesting. So, that's my architecture lesson of the day. But the whole thing, I feel like, is very Game of Thrones. If you go to Fort Agra, it's like watching an episode of Game of Thrones, because you can see the library. Some of the painting and things inside are still intact, which is incredible. You can see the courtyard where they allow people to trade, and actually the slaves that built the Taj Mahal, the craftsmen who built the Taj Mahal, after it was completed, they were not allowed to go back to their homelands because obviously there was a fear that they would share the secrets of the building of the Taj Mahal, so they were forced to stay in the court there, and they could sell their wares and and things within his court, which I'm sure was cold comfort because they were not made aware when they came to build the Taj Mahal that they would not be going home. So, by far the coolest way to spend New Year's Day ever. And then we came back here to Ahmedabad and have been here and just sort of enjoying school and the life here. And John's back in the States now for Kate's wedding. So, congratulations, Kate! Yay! And that's what they're doing in New York. So, until next update, I'm going to be visiting, it looks in the future, definitely Rajasthan and Goa. And we're possibly also going to try to see, I really want to go to Kerala while I'm here. Obviously, suggestions are always welcome. So look forward to the next adventure, and I'll try to update you guys as I know more.